What's up YouTube? I'm back again with another Q&A video this week. No stream again, unfortunately, internet connection. If you could all do me a huge favor and go down and like and subscribe from this video would be greatly appreciated. I do appreciate the listeners who come over each week and support the channel, but the likes, the comments, the subscribes, they put us on a whole nother platform for other people to find us and hopefully participate in future videos. So that would be greatly appreciated. I'm going to dive straight into this. I'm going to start off by saying this was my score this week. We got 2250. It was looking a lot better, but didn't finish the round as well as I'd hoped. Did have a slight drop in rank, which is okay. At this stage of the season, like, I'm not going to finish top. I'm not going to finish number one. So I'm just chasing a decent top 5k rank, hoping to stay in that range, and just trying to have a bit of fun with it and make some interesting trades, win some leagues even, and just go down swinging with the team that I've got, which is in front of you guys now. So we are going to do some Q&A questions from the Slack. I didn't ask Twitter this week because Slack is my love, my pride and joy, so those guys get preference, and there were a few questions that were getting asked. So as per the team this week, teams have been named already. As you can see, Elliot Yeo was the big letdown last week. I didn't finish the round well. It was Houston started the round, started the Sunday way below projected. Steele then followed that up with a 95, which was a little bit frustrating, but he had a good final term, which helped a lot. And then Kerno 54, and it was Yo 64. So it was like 3 horrible scores in 3 games there. Took out 150 off my projected. I was going for 2400, finished 2250. That's what happens with this game. That is the game that we play. So before we get into the Q&A questions, not looking to make any trades this week. Fisher is out, as we know now, so he's missing this week. I do think, I'm going to say this off the rip because I know a lot of the questions are going to be surrounding this. I do think it's a 1 week injury. Clarko said, and it's impossible to trust these coaches and such, but Clarko literally said in the press conference that essentially it was going to be, he was touch and go for this week. Like, he was really close this week, and he didn't make it. He didn't get up for this week, and as a result, they're gonna rest him for the week. They want to play players at 100%. I assume it's a 1 week injury. Absolute worst case, it could be a 2 week injury, but regardless, they play in round 18 against the Sydney Swans. There's a chance he gets tagged in that game. I probably only have him for a 70-75 that game anyway. He's actually probably a loop option with Richards on the Friday that week as well. If Richards scores 75 plus, you're probably just taking that score. But that sort of brings me to this week, and at the moment I'm sitting on 2 trades remaining. I have Richards as my cover. Richards is going to be sub. That's not going to be sub. That's already been confirmed. If I had Richards or Kruger, I would see what they scored. Richards over Kruger, in my opinion. But if you have one or the other, then that's fine. Obviously, just see how they score, and if they get a 70 plus, I would hold Fisher. If they get sub 70, it then becomes a question, and it's not a question to all coaches, and all coaches aren't going to have the same answer. It's a question to you specifically. How do you play this game? What is the threshold for you wanting to trade a player? Do you have enough trades? I've got 2 remaining. I'm willing to go down to 1. For me, at the end of the regular season for leagues, I'm essentially losing a bit of interest in this game in terms of what I'm chasing, who I'm going up against, and what scores I'm trying to get. And I'm confident my ranking will be okay post that anyways, but there's a chance it's not, and that's okay with me, honestly. So I've only really got to survive about 3 weeks myself. So with that in mind, my threshold might not be the same as your threshold. You might be trying to last the whole year. If you had 2 trades and you knew Zach Fisher was a 1 to 2 weeker, there's no way you trade him out. There's realistically no way you trade him out. You could have Richards play, and based on his score, either take it or try to roll on someone else if you have that flexible DPP. I don't really have that flexible DPP, so for me it would just be essentially Richards. But a lot of people are going to be able to do it with Dowling as well, and try and loophole Dowling on instead of Richards. If Richards doesn't score well enough, that to me is fine. If you don't have the trades to move Fisher out, or if you don't want to, or if it doesn't reach your certain risk profile, then don't do it. It's really okay. It's a 1 week injury. There's an 80% chance he's back next week. There's a 100% chance he's back in 2 weeks. Is essentially where I'm putting it. So with that logic, which is that's all we can go off of with what the coach says, that logic. With that logic, I think he's perfectly fine to hold. If Richard scores really poorly this week, I will personally be pulling the trigger. But that's me. That's what works for my team and what I want to accomplish for the rest of the season. And in that case, I would be moving Fisher to. I can perfectly afford Dylan Moore. And then the questions are going to be, what about Caldwell? And we're going to talk about that. So I can afford Dylan Moore with $500 left. Very lucky, but I can do that. And Caldwell obviously plays on the Friday. So that is where the pickle sort of begins. But I'm not in that pickle, so I'm very lucky. And it's good because I nearly got Schoenmaker last week instead of Gray, which would have essentially put me in the same position as everyone else, in which I would have been absolutely stuffed. But that's that. That's my opinion on that for my personal team. We're going to get to a couple of questions about it in a second. But before we do that, I just want to quickly talk about captaincy. Now, you guys can't see on the screen here, but I've got the essentially the games on the right-hand side here. So I like a Dacos vice captaincy. I especially like the fact that he generally plays and scores brilliantly in Friday night matches. I don't think that's a huge correlation to what's going to happen going forward, but I just think he's a gun, and I'd be surprised if he all of a sudden started scoring poorly. I'd also be surprised if someone like Durham didn't stand with him at some point and try to quell his influence. So I don't think he's exactly a slam dunk. I don't think LDU is a slam dunk. I actually don't really like any of the Gold Coast midfielders. I think they're all sort of taking their turns being good, and Rao hasn't had a turn in a long time. I know that for owners. I do like Bontempelli. He absolutely kills us, and we are absolutely not a good team right now, especially not a cohesive midfield unit. Willem Drew doesn't really seem to have that tagging role anymore, so I'm actually really comfortable with a Bontempelli vice captain. Maybe it's influenced by the fact that I'm going to be there in the flesh and watching him kick 10 goals against my team and pick up 30 touches from the midfield, but that's sort of where I sit on that. I'm really comfortable with a Bont vice captaincy. And then I think for me, the preferred captain of the round is either Sarong or Ryan. It's going to come down to which one you prefer out of those guys. I think either is absolutely fine. And if you want to VC one of those guys, you're probably taking that score. But if you did it into a Gorn or someone like that, I think that's also very much acceptable and a good move to make. Worst case scenario, I don't even mind the Brisbane midfielders against Adelaide. There's a few players I don't mind in this one, so I think there's going to be some good scores, and I think people are going to be taking a pretty good VC without really trying hard. But personally, I like Bontempelli a lot this week, but I really do prefer a Sarong/Ryan type. So if Bont doesn't go 120 plus, I'm happy to just roll on to Sarong and let him cook essentially. So that's where I sit with captaincy this week. Now, we are going to move into some podcast questions. We did have a few come through. So Luke, perennial question asker, says, what do we do with Fisher? What's the trades left cutoff to hold/trade? Now, again, that does depend on you and your threshold. I would say I'd feel personally extremely comfortable going from 5 to 4. I'd feel mildly comfortable / slightly uncomfortable going from 4 to 3. As soon as you're going from 3 to 2, 2 to 1, 1 to 0, that's when the discomfort is rising quite significantly. And you think, is it even worth it to avoid a rookie score just this week? So if let's throw a prediction out there. Joey Richards and Kruger, they both play a full game. They both score about 65. Fisher last week scored 18 more points than 65. If he even misses 2 weeks, which would be, I think, on the unlikely side of things, as I said earlier, but if he misses 2 weeks, you're missing out on about, what is that? It's, so what did I just say? 65. That's 18 points. That's 36 points that you're missing out on overall. Is that big of a deal, do you think? Do you think Fisher's going to be able to chase that down? Do you think one trade is worth that amount? I don't personally. So I would be very much comfortable doing that. If Richard scores 50 or less, that's when we're talking I could make up 50 to 80 points on those guys by getting a more, by getting a ranking if you can, etc. So assuming you're not getting Caldwell at this stage, just with this bit of advice here, and you can see the score from Kruger or Richards, I think absolutely it's unlikely he's going to be worth a trade. There's a small chance. With that logic, if these two guys are still your options and Caldwell is your only bailout, I still think the same logic applies. But it just means you go in blind instead of having the luxury of seeing that score before either choosing to take it or go against it. So it is slightly less comfortable. But I do still think it's the best way to do it, especially if you can loop Dowling and Richards. You're probably guaranteeing yourself a 55 plus score, losing about 25 points this week, and probably getting him back next week to chase down those who did trade him. And then that's when you don't hope for carnage, but you know that if carnage does ensue later on in the season, you're in a better position than a lot of people. And in terms of Fisher as an actual premium types of and his scoring on a week-to-week basis, it really does speak for itself. After the poor start to the season, 140, say 95, 140, 116, 113, 120. He had that 71, which was a very low game for him. The 108, and then the 83, in which he only played half a game. Crazy. He puts up insane numbers. So there's no question on his credentials as a premium throughout the rest of the season. It's only whether he misses 2 weeks versus 1, and it's only whether you're comfortable in someone else making up those points or the trade making up those points. I think in most cases, holding Fisher is the right case here, is the right answer, I should say. I think the cases in which you have 5+ trades remaining is when you can really start entertaining it and almost pretty much guarantee that you're not going to be in too much of a bad position, even if you do that. Now, Bado is saying, or is it Bado? I actually don't really know. What do you think of Caldwell as per the chat in general? Would you wait on Parrish to see if the role changes? So Parrish is expected back like round 20 or something like that, I think. So Caldwell has another few weeks left. Parrish isn't exactly safe to just come in and play an incredible role and play every game for the rest of the year and not be injured again or not be sub. I think Caldwell's comfortable. Worst case scenario, he averages about 95 to 100 for the next 3 weeks, and then about 85 flat for the remaining 3 or 4 weeks. So I think that's perfectly okay, to be honest, especially for a forward. Like a lot of people have Jackson /or Kerno, which I have both of. In those instances, you're making up points on those guys if you don't have one of those two or both of those two. So I already think that's a perfectly fine situation. Caldwell is an amazing trade in my opinion. I think more is better, but I think Caldwell is very good. And your worst case scenario with him is not even too bad. If we actually go and look at, I don't know if this even fits in the screen, but I'm going to get his scores up here myself. Because like for a good chunk of this, I can't remember what section it was, but I think the 129 he was in the midfield, the 100 maybe, and then it was like the 90, the 103 and the 80, like he wasn't in the midfield, and then the 88, 94, 115, 127, maybe he ramped it back up into the midfield. There was a section here where he wasn't in the midfield and he was still just scoring and averaging well. Maybe it was up here like the 99, 99, 83, 120. I actually don't know. I haven't followed him closely enough this year to be able to tell you for a 100% fact, but he has averaged well outside of the midfield anyway. So I just think he's one of those safe picks where he's a forward anyway. He's probably going to go 85 in a bad role and 95 to 105 in a good role. And I think that's perfectly good. Perfectly acceptable. 7 trades left and full primo with a bad bench. Drake swap Fisher to Caldwell. Will spend 2 trades to get him to Rankin. This is very interesting. I think Rankin's going to be like dollar for dollar the best forward that you're going to get in the game for the run home. So I absolutely adore that pick. That takes you down to 5 trades, which is still above the threshold, which I said I would still be making the sideways trade. I would actually do that, to be honest. I think that's a super aggressive move that, you still have a lot of trades in the bank. Unless you've got guys that you desperately need to sideways or you should be looking to sideways. I think that is a really good aggressive move. The perfect time to act aggressively. The That was from Mark Destruction Zone. Now from CJ, is it better to hold Sicily or Fisher this week? I have Sexton as cover. It would be Sinclair or Rankin as their replacement. I think it's actually preferable to hold Sicily over Fisher. And that's just because I think Rankin versus Sinclair. So it's Sicily and Rankin versus Sinclair and Fisher. And I don't know why, but I gravitate towards Sicily and Rankin. If you differ on that, then it makes the decision easily. That's where I sit with it. But honestly, that's a flip of the coin. And Rankin and Sicily actually probably does sit on the riskier side in terms of injury risk, because Sinclair generally has a good history with that. So you are also weighing that up. So personally, I sit on that side of the fence, but really, you might have a completely different opinion. But I would be trading one of them for sure. And then covering the other one with Sexton. Pig says Harley Reid F6. Now, this is interesting because I also considered Harley Reid as F6, not for myself, but for a couple of other people that were shopping in the bargain range. So his Optus Stadium record is pretty good, but it's more so his win-loss record. And if we look at the run home, he's got Melbourne at the MCG, a winnable game, but not a guarantee. Brisbane at Optus, you'd say they likely don't win that game. St Kilda at Marvel, they can win. Fremantle at Optus, they've already beaten once this year. I think it's winnable, even though it's unlikely. Gold Coast at Optus, I think is definitely winnable. North Melbourne at Blundstone, winnable. Carlton at Optus, probably not quite as winnable. Geelong at GMHBA. They probably only have 2 or 3 games on the run home where I think it's evenly split enough where you could back in West Coast to win. And that's just probably not quite good enough. I think the wins that they've picked up already have been pretty good, but a real... I don't want to say lucky is the word, but everything's sort of fallen into place nicely for them. Whereas on the run home, it's either opposition favours them or venue favours them, not both. Whereas Melbourne at Optus, I think is low-hanging fruit they could have picked off. Fremantle were in a low point at that stage as well that they picked off. Richmond, obviously, great opposition to come up against, but even at the G, that's a harder task than at Optus, so that just lined up perfectly for them. So yeah, I think it was just a case of things just lined up really well. So honestly, if I could avoid getting Reid, I would, just because I don't personally believe in his run home. I would more so be looking at I don't mind Mackay, but I think Jeremy Cameron's probably the guy for me. Without Tom Hawkins, I don't know if that actually makes him better or worse, because he's going to be relied upon more for goals and to be more of a stout home forward. But I just think Hawthorn, Collingwood, Bulldogs, North, Adelaide, Fremantle, St Kilda, West Coast, I just think they've got a much better run home. And 1, 2, 3, 4 of those games are at GMHBS, which are against Hawthorn, Bulldogs, Adelaide, and West Coast. And I think that suits him perfectly. I'm going to do my classic drinks break if Chizo wants to put the audio over this as well. Watch him stitch me up and not do that now. Alright, so that's from Pig. Now, Harry, the Chooks, 2 trades remaining, and Ryan/Sinclair. 3 trades remaining, anyone under Ryan. I assume also, does that mean Sinclair as well? And then Elia playing poorly through a spanner in the works. So I would go, if you can have 3 trades remaining and get Sinclair, I would do that. If you can't have Sinclair, I would still stay at 3 trades, and I would get Ed Richards personally over Ryan and Sinclair and going down to 2 trades, in my opinion. So bank the extra trade, get Ed Richards, and hope that he scores close enough within, which I think he actually will. I really like the Ed Richards pick. Just going to make sure I'm not overrating that pick there. So, yeah, since moving into the midfield, essentially, he's gone 82, 163, 118, the 77 game that he got injured and only played half a game, 115, 116. Perfectly fine getting Ed Richards and having 3 trades left for the remainder. And I think he's a really fun pick in terms of players that you could get. We got Bell saying Blight, Evans versus Schoenmaker for defensive cover for the rest of the year. Honestly, I don't know. This one's really tough. I don't think Blight is the answer, personally, off the rip there. Logan Evans, I don't think he scored well last week, but he still has been named. He scored 52. Logan Evans, I'm worried, only has a couple of games left in him. But Schoenmaker, I kind of expect to be... How do you even spell this guy's name? There we go. I kind of expected him to be dropped this week, so the fact that he was named again is a little bit surprising to me, but obviously a glowing indictment on how he's played or how valued he's already is in that team. The question mark is, I think they've got Dougal Howard and another player coming back, so it's if he survives those guys. And then you said Blight is the other one. This is a guy who I just really don't know what his job security is like. He scored 50. I think I'd rank it Shawmaker, Evans, Blight in that order. But if the 20k made a huge difference, or you think will be able to make a huge difference for you, like it has for me with Moore versus Caldwell this week, if you think that's a big difference maker, I would still be okay going Evans. I think I just prefer Shawmaker. How long will we be going here? Long enough. Okay, so we've got Takunda, Troll. Is it worth trading Fisher out for Caldwell if you have Dowling as cover and 4 trades left? Now, I did address this in this exact scenario. I still think it's fine to do so, but I would prefer to hold. 4 trades is right on the threshold of it's actually okay to do, and not feel too guilty about. 5, you're doing it with confidence. 3, you're probably holding. 4 is right in that threshold where it can just be, it's up to you really, whether you like it enough or not. But just go on the knowledge that I think he's definitely going to play next week. So if that sways you at all, then you can use me as the guy who gets you on and off the fence. But essentially, Dowling is covered. They've got Brisbane at Brisbane this week. That's going to be a really tough cover. I would probably do the trade, but I think it's fun to get Caldwell because I think he's an absolute gun, and he's got another 2 or 3 weeks of gun scoring. Whereas Fisher's Fisher. But personally, I would probably do the trade, but I think it's more fun to do it. So it really just depends on how mature you are when playing this game. Also, can I trade Jack Steele out for Caldwell? I have Rosie M9, Kircher D7, which might allow me to go Fisher to Rankin in one the following week if Rankin drops 9k. That was way too confusing. No, I'd keep it simple. I think, look, I don't love Jack Steele as a pick, but I think he's good enough, especially considering the fact that he doesn't leave Marvel Stadium. I think they leave there once more for the rest of the year. So Sydney at Marvel, Adelaide, West Coast at Marvel, Essendon at Marvel, Brisbane at Marvel, Richmond at Marvel, Geelong at Marvel, Carlton at Marvel. 4 of those games at Marvel there are really good oppositions, as well as obviously at their home ground. I would just roll it with Jack Steele. You've invested, up until this point. I don't think that's personally worth a trade. I'll do Fisher to Caldwell over Steele to Caldwell, and you definitely, I don't think, have the spare trades to be throwing other guys around the place. But with Rosie at M9, I mean, I would more so consider steal your M9 and put Rosie on field. I think Rosie's probably got a better chance, especially this week, and then assess it on a week-to-week basis. Now, I've got one more question from Josh Legion of Boom. JB, I'm in some strife. I have 3 trades and 15k in the bank with Fisher and Sicily, who are both out. Also, Gov, who may not get up, he will get up. I'm pretty confident on that. I'm confident enough to say out in a YouTube video, Gov will play. I have no bench cover in defence, and I can cover Fisher with Fife. Okay, that's easy. You literally just do that. That's fine. Fife has Richmond at Optus. Perfect. I'm thinking hold Fisher as he can swing back down via Dawson later in the year. Yep. So what to do with Sicily and Gov? If both are out, do I trade both? So this is a scenario where 3 trades and 15k in the bank. Like, I would personally be okay trading Sicily to someone. Sicily to Richards, I think absolutely okay. A lot of fun. But I like the Sicily pick still anyway. So now for me, I'm trading Sicily to Richards, and I'm having 5 cover Fisher. For you might want to hold all of them, and in that case, you have the potential to trade in instead of trading out Sicily. You could potentially trade in a Shawmaker for whoever else is in your defensive line besides Will Dawson as your swing option. That could be a potential option for you, or you can trade that person into the midfield, so you could potentially have more swing action there. That doesn't really help this week with Sicily and Gov not being midfield eligible, but essentially, I would do the Sicily trade to Ed Richards, and I would hold Fisher. But it's acceptable to not do those trades. Those are just the trades that I would do personally. And it's an unlucky situation to be in, but I don't think you'll be fighting. I don't think McGovern will be one of the guys. And as much as I think Sicily's only a 1-week injury, there's a chance that they're safer with him, because they're building something this season, but I don't know if they completely believe that it's their season to really climb the ladder at this point yet. So, I'm okay with moving Sicily to avoid a donut, because that's like immediately, that's not just 30 points that you're saving, that could be 120 points that you make up this week, which is very different. So Sicily trade, hold Fisher. And on that note, that is going to do me. That's all the questions that you guys have asked in Slack. Really appreciate you guys jumping in and asking the questions. I appreciate everyone listening and that have tuned into the streams. I am working on this internet thing. It is not working for me, but I am working for it to try and get it to work as soon as possible. There's a chance that the live streams don't return this year, but the fun that I had thus far with those live streams will be carried into next year, and they'll be made bigger and better and more frequent and more enjoyable. So again, really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you can leave a like, a comment below, chuck a sub on the channel, everything is much appreciated from you guys, but just the fact that you're here is enough for me. So I appreciate everyone. Have a great week. Good luck this week in SuperCoach, and I'll 100% catch you guys in next week's episode.